The reflection on this Father's Day will be given by Jim Truesdell. Jim.
Thank you, Brother George. Good morning. Most of you probably don't know me. We've been parishioners here, my family and I, since 1978-79. But we're 11 o'clock Mass people, so we don't get here very often, but I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you this morning. I suppose I should start by thinking about what qualifies me to give this little talk today. I don't think I'm any smarter, know any more than any of the other fathers here today, but I do have almost 39 years of experience, so I guess that's the best I can do is share my experience and what I've learned over the years, and you can take it for what it's worth. I suppose I should start by talking about my experiences with my children. After all, it's their fault that I'm the father. Our first child is our daughter, Kim. There's something special about your first child. I can remember going back to work after she was born and literally feeling that I was walking a foot off the ground. Kim was a good kid, never got in trouble as she grew up, and we were always very proud of her. She went through her dark goth period, which was a little difficult at times. Sometimes I felt like our house was being invaded by zombies with their white makeup and dark lipstick and spiked hair. But she's grown up to be a wonderful, caring person. She gave us our first grandchild, Ellen. And with her recent marriage to her husband, Ron, we now have an additional 3 step-grandchildren, Josh, Justin, and Jess. I can see how much she's like her mother by her strong commitment to her children. As a father, I was lucky to start out with a daughter like Kim. While we had some normal teenage rebellious stages, she really was never a problem. She made friends easily and always got along with people. As a result, I was able to skate by and come off as a pretty good dad. Our second child is our son, John. John was born with multiple delays at birth. The first sign of problems was that he was born with webbed fingers and toes. The doctor told us that these could be separated in time, but this is sometimes a sign of other issues. As it turned out, as John got older, his developmental delays began to show. He didn't talk or walk when you would expect him to, and he seemed to fall well behind where he should be on the normal scale of childhood developmental expectations. The doctors were never able to tell us what the cause was for his delays or any definite diagnosis. This was a new experience for us, but we carried on, enrolled him in a therapeutic program to help him develop with his delays, and we worked the best we could to give him a normal life. It was at this time in our life that we decided it was time to come back to the church. Like a lot of young couples, we had fallen away from regular church attendance. I'm not sure if we decided it was time to come back to the church because of John's issues, or if we just felt it was something we needed to do at the time. But whatever the reason, it was an important turning point in our lives. I truly believe that God led us here to the Church of the Holy Spirit at a time in our lives when He knew we would need the support of a strong faith community. We immediately got involved in the parish and got to know Father George, Father Greg, and other staff members very well. About a year or so after we started coming here, John got sick. He began to have seizures, followed by high fever, rashes, and more seizures. He was in and out of several of the top hospitals in the area, and no one could tell us what he had. To make a long story short, John passed away on June 27, 1980. The most horrible thing that a parent could imagine had happened. I can remember after the funeral coming back to our house and sitting and talking with Father George, family, and friends. This support at the time almost made life seem bearable. But then everyone went home. It was Sue and I and 6-year-old Kim in the house by ourselves, wondering what to do next. I remember walking up the stairs by myself and stopping to look into John's room. Everything was still there like nothing had happened, except John wasn't there. I walked into the room, looked into his closet, and collapsed to the floor sobbing uncontrollably. How could I get through this? It seemed impossible. For the first time, I came to know the pain of parenting. It was the darkest time of my life, but during this time, I came to know the importance of faith. That somehow life would go on and I would survive. I especially learned the importance of having my wife Sue at my side. We were both falling apart, but somehow we were both holding each other up. Family and friends, especially friends here from the Church of the Holy Spirit, were there to support us. Somehow we made it. We knew that we weren't alone, and we knew that life would go on, and that we needed the strength to carry on for the sake of our daughter. Life did go on, and in 1982 we had another son, Christopher. We were so excited to have another child, another boy. I remember the first thing I did when he was born was to check out his fingers and toes to make sure they were separated. Chris gave us a run for the money. The term terrible twos, I'm convinced, was invented for him. It was more than a few times that I would come home from work to find Stu practically in tears after being with his toddler all day long. But we got through it. Chris grew up, and once he got through the toddler years, was a great kid who I'm very proud of. I watched him graduate from college and graduate school and get married to our daughter-in-law, Erin. They now have their own child, our granddaughter, Addison, who just turned 2 last month, and I can see what great parents they've become. I keep waiting to see if she's going to be the same challenging toddler that Chris was. So far, I don't think so, but we can only hope. You might think that this would have been a good place to stop having kids. We now had 2 children, a boy and a girl. We had lost a child. Maybe this was the time to say that we have a nice little family here. Let's just leave it at this. This would have made sense. But we didn't stop. When John was with us, we had a lot of exposure to children with developmental disabilities through his school and friends from church. Sue and I felt strongly that we were being called to adopt a child with disabilities and give him or her a chance for a better life. After all we'd experienced raising our other children, and our experience with John gave us the ability to understand the challenges of a child with special needs. That brings us to our 4th child, Rachel. Many of you know Rachel. She's always here with us at the 11 o'clock Mass every Sunday, sitting in the front row, as she is today. She's now 28 years old, but I can remember very clearly the day we brought her home from the hospital. Her birth parents were good people struggling with a tough decision, but they just didn't feel that they had the ability to raise a child with Down syndrome and decided it was best to give her up for adoption. So here we were pulling out of the parking lot of Lutheran General Hospital with a month-old baby, barely 5 pounds, with Down syndrome. I remember looking into the back seat, the reality of the situation hitting me in the face, and thinking, what in the world have we gotten ourselves into? As it turns out, Rachel has been a blessing to our family and to everyone that she comes in contact with. She truly is a gift from God. I believe that she is the purest, most positive, honest, and caring person that God has ever placed on this earth. And He has been good enough to entrust her to us. When she walks into a room, people can't help but smile. Rachel is considered by society as having a disability, but how can a person as loving, caring, and joyful as Rachel ever be considered disabled? We should all be fortunate enough to have this disability. I remember many years ago when Rachel was small, even shorter than she is today. The school district was working on a new method of communication with children who didn't speak. Rachel was sometimes hard to understand, so they tried it with her. It was a fairly controversial method at the time, and I don't think they do it anymore, but it was a method where the teacher would gently put her hands over the child's hands, and without guiding them at all, allow the child to type whatever letters they chose on a computer keyboard. They found that in some cases the child would actually type out messages that they couldn't otherwise verbalize. One day, Rachel came home from school with the paper she had typed that day. Sue showed it to me. It started out just as a bunch of mixed up, meaningless letters and symbols, and then all of a sudden some words started to form, and it read, "I am an angel sent by God to help people become better teachers." Sue called the teacher to see what this was and who typed it. They assured us that this came directly from Rachel. Now, Sue will tell you that I'm normally a very skeptical person when it comes to things like this, but I truly believe there is something to this. Rachel is truly our family's angel, and certainly has taught us through her example what unconditional love is. Well, our first adoption went well, so why not do it again? It's easy, right? What a blessing, right? When we adopted Rachel, we had to get a foster care license. We reapplied for our license and started all over and told the agency that if another child came up for adoption, to let us know and we'd consider it. Well, one day while we were on vacation in the Wisconsin Dells, we got a phone call to let us know that there was an 18-month-old little girl that was going to be available. She had been with her foster family since birth, and they had intended to adopt her, but due to a change in circumstances, they changed their mind. Would we be interested? Sure we would. She first came to visit us for a day, then for a weekend. She appeared to be a very bright, normal little girl. She needed a home. We could do this. After all, we had raised our own biological children and an adopted child with a disability. This wouldn't be hard, or so we thought. Melissa, our 5th child, appeared to be normal, but soon we started noticing red flags. She was very wary of men. When we took her to visit her former foster family, she gave out a blood-curdling scream. As she got older, she had difficulty making friends. Her behavior was difficult to control. We had her evaluated, and they indicated that her behavior showed typical signs of a child who had been physically and sexually abused at a very young age. We began taking her to see a variety of doctors and therapists. We tried every type of therapy we could find. We worked with a variety of psychologists and psychiatrists. We tried a number of different medications. Sue became a research fiend. She was constantly on the internet trying to get information about kids like Melissa, and and what could be done to help. During all this, we tried to keep up as normal a family life as possible. She went to school, we enrolled her in gymnastics, we tried to encourage her to make and play with friends. But everything was difficult for Melissa. Everything was a fight. She didn't listen. She was always uncooperative. Now this may sound like she was just a brat, but at this point we had raised other children. We knew what normal bratty behavior was. This was different, and we couldn't put our finger on what it was or what to do about it. As she got older, it got worse. She was disrupted in school and had to be restrained on several occasions. She became more violent. She would lash out at us verbally and physically. She attacked teachers. She literally destroyed her room, put holes in the walls, broke the door off the hinges 3 times, broke her window, among other things. I had a black eye for my son Christopher's wedding. At times, police had to get involved. I could go on and on if I had more time. It got to the point that our adult children and grandchildren didn't come over anymore. Who could blame them? Every visit was a catastrophe. Our grandchild, Evan, was in fear of her. She even brought Rachel to tears. No one would come to the house when we couldn't go out. No one would babysit with her and we couldn't have her at home alone. We were at the end of our rope and it felt like our life was falling apart. Eventually, Melissa was diagnosed with, among other things, something called reactive attachment disorder, or RAD. This disorder occurs in people who were abused, neglected, abandoned, or had experienced other similar trauma at a very young age. When normal kids learn to depend on and attach to their parents, children with RAD learn that they can't depend on anyone but themselves. As they get older, they avoid close relationships with anyone because their experience has been that anyone that they've allowed to get close has hurt or abandoned them. In order to avoid getting hurt again, they push people away, and the harder you try to build a relationship, the harder they push. And Melissa pushed very hard. We learned that it is very difficult to heal from this disorder. We also learned that there is very little help out there for families dealing with mental health issues. But that's a topic for another day. Anyway, I started to question God. Why did you do this to our family? What have we done to deserve this? We're good people, maybe not perfect, but we've tried our best. We've done what we thought we were called to do, and now our lives seem to be coming apart. Well, mostly through Sue's unwavering diligence and research, we were able to find funding for a residential treatment center that would take Melissa and provide her with the therapy, schooling, and residential program that she needed. We didn't think it was necessarily the perfect place for her, but at that point it was the only option that we had, so we went for it. Telling our daughter that we were sending her away was the hardest thing that we've ever had to do as parents. Despite everything, we still loved her. She was our daughter after all. We raised her since she was 18 months old, and now she was 12. And we did have good times. Melissa's very bright. She loves to cook and is very good at it. She can be very funny, and she can be very, very thoughtful when she wants to be. Unfortunately, the bad things became so bad that it just overwhelmed the good things. During these times, I would often ask Rachel, "What are we going to do with your sister?" And Rachel would always answer, "Just love her." And I do love her. But sometimes you have to love her enough to make the hard decisions, to do what is necessary to give her life a chance in the long term. And that's what we had to do for Melissa. One of the unfortunate and unintended results of all the time and effort that we put into trying to help Melissa is that it caused a lot of damage within our family. It had taken away precious time that should have been given to our other children and grandchildren, especially Heather. Instead of spending time with our grandson as he was growing up, we spent all of our time trying to fix Melissa. We missed out on building a stronger relationship with him as well as our children. I'm sorry for that, and I apologize to the children. I hope they can forgive me for this, and know that I was only trying to do the best I could in a very difficult situation. Now Melissa is 16 years old. She has spent most of the last 4 years away from home. Although we've always been in contact with her by phone and by regular visits, she is now in her 4th residential placement. She has struggled even in the best of facilities. About a year ago, it looked like she had turned a corner and she came home for several months. It was okay for about a month, and then it rapidly went downhill. She ran away several times, got involved with the wrong people, and at 15 displayed behaviors that were putting her as well as our family in danger. Because of this, she had to go back into residential treatment. Some days I have to work very hard to overcome the sadness that I feel over not being able to have one of our children at home with us, especially at an age when she should be enjoying the normal events of being a teenager: school, sports, prom, going out with friends. It breaks my heart. But we have hope. We have hope that she can turn things around and someday live a normal life, have a family, and be happy. She may never live with us again, but we have hope that we can one day have an adult relationship with her like we have with our other children. And And we hope that someday she'll come to us and say, Mom and Dad, I'm sorry for the pain I've caused. Thank you for loving me through it all, and thank you for not giving up on me. You saved my life. Maybe this is just a fantasy, but I believe the day will come when this will happen. God calls all of us to do different things. He never told us that it would be easy. I believe that He called us to adopt Melissa so that she would have a chance in this world. I believe that we've given her that chance, and we've done our best. Now it's up to Melissa to make the decision to change. I have faith that she will. I would appreciate it if you would all keep her in your prayers. Well, that's my story. So what have I learned from all this? Never stop working on your relationship with your wife. You will need to support each other through the difficult times. It also sets an example for your children by showing them what a loving relationship looks like. Sue has been my rock. Her commitment to our children is unwavering. It took a strong, loving relationship to get us through our tough times. I couldn't have faced it alone. Parenting is hard. Love isn't always enough. You won't have all the answers. You won't always know the right thing to do, and you will make mistakes. But if love for your children is at the heart of your decisions, you'll muddle through. Spend time with your children. It goes by too fast. Be there for your children. You can't solve all their problems for them, and probably shouldn't, but you can support them and just let them know that you're around if they need you. Don't be afraid to make tough decisions if it's what's best for your children. Don't give up on them. Be willing to forgive them, and don't be afraid to ask them to forgive you. Do the best you can. That's all that anyone can ask. But above all else, take Rachel's advice and just love them.